So today we're going to talk about ethics in the midst of disaster. So for my reflection, I chose a moral situation involving a government engineer who discovers corruption in DPWH flood control projects. These poorly done projects caused flash floods that displaced hundreds of families. Now, the engineer is stuck in a really difficult position. Should they stay silent to protect their job and livelihood, or speak up and expose the wrongdoing to protect the public? This is what we call a whistle-blowing dilemma. It's a conflict between self-preservation and public duty. The engineer's decision here doesn't just affect themselves, it also affects the safety and well-being of many people. So applying ethical theories. So let's start with utilitarianism. So the idea of what creates the greatest happiness for the greatest number. If the engineer stays quiet, they keep their job and their family stays financially safe. But the public continues to suffer more floods, more people losing their homes, and more misuse of public money. On the other hand, if the engineer exposes the corruption, it might cause short-term problems, but it prevents much bigger harm in the long run. So from a utilitarian view, the right thing to do is to reveal the corruption because it brings the greatest good for the greatest number. It saves lives, restores trusts, and protects the community. Now, from Kant's deontological perspective, what matters is duty. Doing the right thing simply because it's right, not because of the results. As a public servant, the engineer has a duty to be truthful, to uphold the law, and protect the people. If everyone decided to stay silent about corruption, public safety and government integrity would completely break down. Also, Kant says that we should treat people as ends in themselves, as not as means to an end, but staying silent. By staying silent, the engineer threatening would be treating the citizens as a means to keep their salary, which is morally wrong. So, from a deontological standpoint, the engineer has a moral duty to speak up and expose the wrongdoing. Then there goes virtue ethics, which focuses on character. A good and virtuous engineer would show courage, integrity, and justice. So staying silent might be easier, but is not what a person of a good character would do. A virtuous engineer would have the courage to tell the truth, even it's risky, because that's what integrity really means. So for me, the most ethical choice is clear. The engineer should expose the corruption. I know it's risky, they could lose their job or face pressure, but all three ethical theories point in the same direction. For a utilitarian view, it says to protect the greater good. The ontology says it fulfills moral duty. And from virtue ethics, it says that it shows courage and integrity. Even if it's difficult, personally, it's the right thing to do for the public and for their own moral conscience. Now, let's connect this to environmental ethics and social justice. The failed flood control projects show lack of responsibility toward the environment. Engineers have a duty to design sustainable projects that work with nature, not against it. Corruption ignores the duty. Poorly built structures damage ecosystems and make communities more vulnerable. By exposing the corruption, the engineer is also standing up for environmental responsibility, making sure the public works respect nature and protect lives. In, in other terms, and in terms of social justice, corruption always hurts the poor the most. The families who lost their homes are the ones paying the price for someone else's greed. Speaking out is an act of fairness and accountability. It makes sure people it makes sure public funds actually go to keeping people safe, not into corrupt pockets. So by doing what's right, the engineer is just protecting nature as but also fighting for justice for the people most affected. So in the end, it takes courage to do what's right, especially when it comes with personal risk. But as an engineer, a public servant, and a human being, standing up for truth, justice, and integrity is what real ethics looks in action. Thank you.